And one thing we hear about USAID is that it was helping project America's soft power. What do people mean by that phrase, soft power?
Well, I mean, soft power has been used in a lot of different contexts. We've seen this in Thailand talking about soft power, trying to, you know, everything from elephant pants to Thai cooking, to try to encourage tourists to come. But I mean, soft power in this context really means that the US had a set of values that meant it was prepared to engage and support people around the world, and that they were prepared to try to help them solve their problems. And through soft power, what you do was it wasn't the hard power of the military. It was the soft power of like, here are some ideas, here are some resources, let's work together. And the takeaway would be that local communities would say, hey, those Americans aren't so bad. Those Americans are actually here to help us out and work with us and listen to what we say rather than, just order us around or impose tariffs from afar on the things that we're trying to sell them.
And now that that assistance is gone, there's no immediate motivation for them to say, oh, these Americans aren't such bad guys. Does that open a window for China and Russia to come in?
Well, we're already seeing that happen in some places. So, for instance, um, the situation in Laos and Cambodia, there are still very serious problems connected to wartime ordnance. In Cambodia, it's landmines from the long civil war, which the U.S. Was supporting one side on. In Laos, it's the cluster munitions, the so-called bombies, which still are in the soil and are killing as many as 40 people a year. And the U.S. was recognizing that it had a role to play and it had a historical responsibility to step up to try to solve these problems, which were causing major problems for farmers and other people who are trying to use the land, and finding that there were landmines or these cluster munitions still in the ground. Uh, with the U.S. cutting that assistance off, now we have China stepping in, both in Cambodia and in Laos. And I'm frankly, to be honest, I'm happy that China is providing some resources to do that. They should be trying to help solve this problem. But what we're going to see in other contexts, like for instance the Myanmar earthquake, uh, the U.S. used to be the leader in disaster response. They had these so-called DART teams composed of experts who would be ready to fly at a moment's notice into a disaster zone and try to coordinate not only the U.S. assistance, but also work with various partners. And you would talk to humanitarians who were involved in these sort of international urgent missions, the smoke jumpers of humanitarian assistance. And they would say, yeah, the U.S. was one of the best organized, one of the best resourced. You arrive on the ground, they're usually there already. They can tell you what's going on. They've already done an assessment of some of the key areas. They can tell you who's doing what where, so that you don't duplicate efforts. And all that's gone now. In Myanmar, if this had happened during the Biden administration, there would be a 150-person DART team from USAID already in on the ground in Myanmar. Instead, we have a week after the fact, three guys with approximately $2 million flying into Myanmar, well behind everybody else, saying, "Okay, we've got to see what we can do with it." As I said, it's from leader to laggard. They're way behind the pack now. It's almost like the U.S. hardly has a presence in these situations anymore. And if you look at who was in first, you had the China team fly in, you had the Russia team flying in, you had the India team fly in, and if it wasn't a military government, there would have been a lot more groups flying in.
So why is it that the Trump administration would want to cede its influence to China, which it's identified as a strategic rival? If you put yourself in the mindset of the Trump administration, why? Because the amount of money they're saving by cutting these programs is absolutely tiny in relative terms. So
I
aren't
think
they
it's
just
sheer
shooting themselves in the
incompetence.
foot?
I just don't think that these guys have a clue what they're doing. This is they went after foreign aid to start with because they wanted to be seen as budget cutters. So they loosed Elon Musk on USAID because they recognize that most Americans don't understand what foreign assistance is or what it does, and there would be fewer defenders. So that was the first victim, and it was the first agency to be knocked down in what is a campaign of intimidation. And this is the game that's being played. They want to be seen as budget cutters. They want to be seen as budget hawks, going after tiny little programs so that when they pass this massive tax cut and give it to billionaires, which is, now proceeding, there's a just the passage of a resolution in the Senate 52-48 just yesterday to start that whole process that the American people will think that the Trump administration is not blowing up the budget, but actually they're trying to cut it. This is all smoke and mirrors. And the reality is that I don't think the Trump administration cares about what is happening in Myanmar or what is happening in Thailand. I mean, they see these governments as somehow evil and trying to take advantage of the U.S., which is why they've hit them with these massive tariff increases on any sort of export being sent from Thailand or Myanmar or Cambodia or Vietnam or China to the U.S. That somehow the world is trying to take advantage of the Americans. It's an insular, know-nothing approach that the Trump administration is undertaking, and they simply repeat mantras that they think are going to, resonate with their base while they knock down programs and knock out fire qualified people that were leading those programs. And, so what's happening to USAID is also going to happen to education programs in the U.S. It's happening to health programs in the U.S. It's happening to other numerous programs across the entire federal government. And so it's a bit of a sort of U.S. government Armageddon, but the Armageddon is internal. That they're basically blowing up the capacity of the federal government to do many different things.